Hi lovelies and welcome to the Witch's Cookery. What if I told you that out there in the wide world there is a specific place where you have the highest chance of finding your one true love, and there is the perfect place for you to step into a career that is so fun and empowering and just up your alley. And there is a place where you have a much easier time finding new friends or growing spiritually, or on a smaller scale, that there is a coffee shop in your town where you will write your first big novel, and that there's a way to determine in which part of your personal town or city you have the highest chance of being perceived and appreciated just for the way you are. Well, at least this is what astrocartographers believe. Astrocartography is a fairly new branch of astrology. Personally, you know, I'm a little skeptic. I usually stay very grounded in science and psychological research, but occasionally, as a witch, I like to dabble in the things unseen and things unproven because, well, if they don't do harm, why not try them out and see if there's some truth to it, or if I can subtract some personal reflection tool, gain insights about myself, about life, about how the universe works for myself. And today we're doing just that, and I signed up as your personal guinea pig, and I had the lovely Helena Woods help me.
Hi, I'm Helena Woods, and I'm an astrologer specializing in relocation astrology and astrocartography, which shows the energy and stories of places in the world using your unique birth chart.
And she was the one that kind of like got me hooked on the entire topic, because a year ago or so she did my natal chart and zodiacal releasing reading, and I kind of got into it. And now that I'm paying closer attention to astrology, I sometimes see overlap in my life, and occasionally even sometimes plan work stuff or travel stuff with the planets in mind. Will you ever convince the skeptical and science-rooted part of my brain that this is real? Probably not, but hey, so far so good. Astrocartography is a relatively new offshoot of astrology.
This was created by Jim Lewis, and Jim Lewis was this astrologer who was really good with computer softwares in the 70s.
So as you might have heard, everyone has a natal chart. A natal chart is basically just a snapshot of where all the planets were when you were just born. This is also where you get your solar sign, your moon sign, your rising sign. And this snapshot is taken and then mapped against the world to see which places vibe with you the most at certain points in your life and for certain purposes.
He created this mapping software. He took that information and he basically used his computer and put those lines exactly where they were. He put them on the map. So you could see where the sun was setting when you were born in the world. The moon was rising over here in this part of the world. Venus was at the darkest part of the chart, so she was in like really not visible or seen at that moment. So basically you're seeing where all the planets were on the map in the whole world when you took your first breath.
When you first look at astrocartography map, it's completely overwhelming. There's just this spider webs of like lines going vertical, going horizontal, crisscross around the map, and I first was like, looks too technical for me. I don't know what I'm looking at. But luckily, Helena was there to explain.
The main lines on your map are called astrocartography lines. Those main lines are the longitudinal lines, your astrocartography lines that show where those planets were, and also the energy and story of what that story brings about in your life. When you look at your map and you're scrolling through your map, you'll see that astrocartography lines, those longitudinal lines, at certain parts in the world, they cross and they intersect. And at those intersections is when a Paran is formed. And a Paran goes across the entire globe and shows you the energy and story that's happening at a specific latitude. So like specific cities, specific towns, specific regions of a country, you can see what the energy and the influence of that story is happening. So that's the secondary influence, but very important, because Parans can really make or break a place. Even if you have a beautiful astrocartography line where the energy is really supportive for you and the story is really helpful for you, if you're on a latitude where there's a difficult blend of planets, it can cause a more challenging experience.
So what does that mean? Basically, every line has a certain type of energy, a certain type of theme to it, a storyline, if you will, that wants to come out if you personally travel through that line or live on that line.
Often clients will come to me, one, because they're looking for where they should move. A lot of people are relocating right now or want to move to a new part of the world, or they want to move to the countryside right now. That's happening a lot in the last 6 months. And so a lot of people are looking for their homes, where it's best to settle down, find peace, where to buy a home. And other people are just wanting to know where their love of their life is, or where their partnership lines are, where they can find love, where their best career places are to begin a career and to get that started.
So the place I'm living now, I was not necessarily on top of any line. So I was wondering, what is the radius of those lines? How far or how close do you have to live? Doesn't matter if you're east or west, north or south of a line.
For the Parans, for those latitude crossings, those have a mileage of 70 to 75 miles maximum. For the astrocartography lines, you could be up to 700 miles. Jim Lewis, the founder of astrocartography, said 700 miles, but I personally use an orb of influence of 600 miles just because I find that with all my client work, I have not seen 700 to be a big influence or even noticeable for people. But the closer you get to that astrocartography line, the more intense that story and energy is. And so about 150 miles is an intense strength. So anywhere from 0 to 150 miles is where you're gonna feel that impact the most. And then it gets weaker as you fade away from those astrocartography lines. Usually west is best, being west of an astrocartography line, because it moves that planet to a more angular position, which in astrology, angular positions are more prominent, more obvious, more dynamic. The energy is just more apparent, and angular houses are traditionally better in astrology. And so when you move west of it, it puts that planet in a better position.
So while I was trying to make sense of it all in my head, I saw that there were multiple Venus lines on my chart. But since I know that there's only one Venus, I got confused. But I noticed there were abbreviations behind that line.
We have 11 planets and Chiron as well is included in that, the wounded healer. But we have 11 of those planets, and we have 4 angles in our birth chart. So there's 4 points in our birth chart where those planets can hit, and that's where those lines were created from the 4 angles. So for instance, the 4 angles in astrology are the ascendant, which is your sense of self and who you are and your identity and physical body. We have the opposite of the ascendant, which is the descendant, and that's other people, relationships, love, your partner. And then we have the MC angle, which is your career, your social reputation, and your public image. So it's all vocation and career related. And then we have the opposite of the career, which is the home and the family line. And that's the IC. And the IC represents the past, ancestry, lineage, family, and your personal private home life. And so those 4 angles in your birth chart are the most important thing in terms of astrocartography, because as you move to different parts of the world, those planets move to different angles, and that's where those lines are created on your map. So we have 44 of them, 11 planets times 4.
So this means that these different lines with the different abbreviations or the quarters of life will activate or tell what area of your line that specific planet is influencing or playing out at energy-wise. Is it business? Is it personal? Is it relationships with others? Is it how you're seen? And I started to get it, but then of course Helena was there to make it even more complicated, because surprise, it's different for everyone, because all of the data you get from there is based on your personal natal chart.
All of these lines that you're seeing on the map, they are your planets. So when you took your first breath, those planets, if the sun was in Capricorn, if your moon's in Scorpio, right? You go to a moon line, you're going to a Scorpio moon line. If you go to a sun line and you have a Capricorn sun, you're going to a Capricorn sun line. So that energy of that sign is also going to influence the story of your motivation, your willpower, your vitality. And so it all depends on your birth chart as well.
Now, as you can see, you really need your birth data for that. So if you're unsure at what time, exact location or date you were born, it's hard to get an astrocartography reading. So what could you do?
It does make it really, really hard. If you don't have the time within 15 minutes, it can really shift the lines. If you haven't contacted your hospital or gotten a birth certificate with that time, I highly recommend going to a chart rectification specialist, and that will really help. It's much better to go to a specialist than to guess or to ask your mom or to hope that you have around the right time, because a specialist will get really specific about when specific events were happening to you in life, and they'll use that reverse engineering to find the accurate time.
And if you traveled or moved around a lot, you might know that places have a different energy for you, and also your focus in a different place shifts. And this was part of my personal reading where I'm living now. According to astrocartography, I'm really in a hustle and work and focus mode. It's not necessarily a super easy energy, but is exactly what I'm feeling. A lot of new projects, a lot of change. And then what was also very fascinating is that Helena said I'm basically doing exactly what my chart says I'm supposed to do. Working with spirituality, working against the mainstream, doing my own thing. Whereas in other parts of the world that I have lived in, and I lived in a couple of countries and moved I think over 20 times, when we looked into those locations, weirdly enough, the themes that were really present for me back then, for example, a career switch, or setting the basis for what I'm going to do, or finding love, were exactly at those places that I lived in the Netherlands, in Poland, in Ireland, in Estonia. And moving forward, the advice I've gotten out of this all, when I'm done with this space and with this time of my life where I'm raising kids, where I'm building a business, where I'm hustling and making shit happen, connecting people, and I want a bit more tranquility, maybe write a book, I should apparently go to the Canary Islands or close to Sevilla, which would be great because my partner is Spanish. We want to retire in Spain anyway. I think the other one was Puerto Rico. I hear they have good cocktails, so drop my phone.
So this is based on transits and progressions, which is like astrological timing techniques. So as you know, the cosmos move and shift, they move, and it shows what's shifting in the world for you as well. And so you have, for instance, in Germany, well, right now you got Jupiter on your ascendant, which I think we talked about how like Jupiter is expansion, growth, possibility, new beginnings for expansion in your world. And that's going right on your sense of self and your identity. So, you know, you're experiencing that Jupiter and Gemini transit on your sense of self right now. It's going right through Germany. You could see it's this white line. It's been moving through. But have you felt in the last 2 weeks, have you felt like any sense of like possibility or new beginnings or any luck or like any expansion in your life over like the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, so tomorrow I'm actually like getting the keys to my, like, not office, but like a complete like witchy sanctuary that I'm opening there.
Oh my god.
Like where I can host like workshops and do like coaching and counseling and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of growth and a lot of like change happening right now, and a lot of like new projects and a lot of like also for me new things that are popping up for me. So yeah, absolutely.
So what does that mean? You can basically pick places on the world map that will most support you in your current life situations, your endeavors, your wants and needs. That is, if you have the luxury of moving and traveling around. Not everyone does, and some people are just rooted to a spot because of life's circumstances. But don't worry, there is something for you here too. And that is basically the same thing, but on a much smaller scale.
This is a different technique aside from astrocartography. It's called local space. And basically this technique's really cool, and you could do this for free on websites like astro.com and just use the local space feature on the mapping software. But this local space is a separate technique, but it shows you from your house, from your place of residence, you can see which coffee shops are going to be best for you, which neighborhoods, which parks, what are the energies, themes, and stories that are in your neighborhood, in your local city, in your town. If you're looking for the best co-working place to get some work and take some Zoom meetings or whatever, you can use the local space from your house and see, where is my Mercury line in this city? Oh, the Mercury line, the communication line, good for writing and work, is going through this street and through this building where that co-working space is. Or if you want to find a really great gym to work out in, to work up a sweat, you could see, where is my Mars line in relation to my house and where I live in my city. So you could use this technique, local space, to find like your local areas and local places on a very micro level of individual buildings, streets, and neighborhoods.
So what are good lines to live on or nearby?
I would say my favorite combination is Moon Jupiter Parans, as well as being close to a Moon Jupiter astrocartography lines. It's a sense of joy, enthusiasm, luck. I think of like Disney energy, like magic, hope, wonder, faith, pixie dust. Like it's that energy of like dream big and that emotional connection to your hopes and your dreams and your faith. And so I love Moon Jupiter Parans. They're very lucky. Or being close to a Jupiter astrocartography line is lovely, especially if in your chart you have a really well positioned Jupiter and Moon. But overall, definitely that combination is great.
And then we of course also need to know the ones that are more difficult.
Yeah, Mars-Pluto can be a really hard combination. Mars-Pluto can represent anger, frustration, drivenness, competitiveness, but also sense of ruthlessness, or can be anger, violence, tempers. So Mars-Pluto is challenging. Mars-Uranus can also be unsettling or impulsive or a bit reckless. And also Mars-Saturn, but Mars-Saturn can be very good for getting work done and ambition, but it is a bit more of start-stop or just a lot of responsibilities on your plate and feeling like there's a lot of responsibilities. But that can be great for different seasons of life. But I would say Mars-Pluto and Mars-Uranus.
The lovely Helena not only knows a shit ton about this topic, but she also uses it in practice. And I think she is that person in my life that travels the most. I constantly see her hopping around different countries and continents, utilizing all that astro energy while eating amazing foreign food and getting a tan. I'm so jealous.
I personally like to use astrocartography for planning my travels. So I'll plan my year. I work remotely as a digital nomad, as an astrologer working from on the road. So I go to my different lines to do different things. Like I just launched an astrology certification course for astrocartography. And so I started the year, in one place on one line to bring the vision forth and to put the intention out there to start the project. And then I built the back end and got the contracts in place on my Saturn line, which is all about that discipline, duty, and like the detailed work behind the scenes. And then I filmed the content on my Sun line, where it was more about creation and self-expression. And then I launched it on my Mars line and my Mercury line, which is all about communication, getting the word out there, and action. And so I use this in my own life, depending on projects I'm working on, depending on if I'm going on a trip with my husband and we want to go on like a love line, or if I want to connect with family and go on a family road trip with family members. I use it to plan where I'm going and when, and timing it so I'm getting the best possible use of that energy at the time that I'm going, using transits.
Now, if you're really curious about astrocartography or might want to look in it yourself just to feel it out or see what the planets have in store for you, so to say, there are a couple of websites that you can use.
If you're gonna do astrocartography seriously and like really plan your travels and time it well and all of that, I would recommend getting a professional software, just because there's so many details not included in free websites softwares. So SolarFire is the one I love and use. There are other ones like Matrix Horizons, Kepler, Janus. So there's other professional softwares that have all the bells and whistles, including timing techniques, how to see the lines move across your map so you can plan your travels and your trips. But if you're doing this for fun and you're not doing it professionally, you can use astro.com for fun. You can make a free profile and you go to the local space feature. The AstroClick travel map is not as great because it doesn't show the Parans, it doesn't have a measuring tool, and there's a lot of other detailed things you can't see on free websites like astro.com, but the local space feature is the one that I really love and recommend people use. I have a lot of free videos on YouTube and free blog posts that you could read, as well as my free astrocartography cheat sheet and guide, so you can get all the meanings of the lines and start using and understanding your map. If you wanted to go deeper with me, I offer one-on-one readings, private consultations, and I also teach online courses, both live courses and evergreen self-paced that you can join in at any time and start learning this for you and your family and your own life. And I also just came out with a reader directory. So I just came out with the Aligned Astrocartographers Community, which is a directory of astrologers that specialize in relocation. And they are all certified through my certification program, and you can find them on my website at helenawoods.com.
I hope you enjoyed this, maybe brought you some new knowledge or triggered your interest in the topic. This particular reading for me personally was very on point, and it kind of got me interested to look a little bit more into it. I hope you have a most magical day, and I shall see you very soon. Goodbye! Also, did you see I accessorized according to the topic? Whoa, I feel so put together!